Orlando participated last year in a very interesting competition which was run by the Observer newspaper, a leading newspaper over here in the UK. And they launched a 2012 share portfolio challenge. And they had 3 different managers who are very highly regarded and well thought of here in the UK participating in this share portfolio contest where the managers had to pick a portfolio of shares and see who would do best. They also had Orlando, and they had a way by which Orlando, by pressing a button with his paw, would also select individual securities. So we had these 3 eminent gentlemen, fund managers, highly regarded, pitched against Orlando the cat. How did they do? Well, the interesting thing is Orlando managed to turn in 1 year, if we just went with the shares that he picked randomly with his paw, he managed to turn £5,000 into 5,542. The professionals were only able to turn 5,000 into 5,176, and the kids from one of the local primary schools, well, they didn't do it as well. In fact, they lost money, and 5,000 became 4,840. So before we all queue up to ask Orlando to manage our money, the one interesting thing that the Observer newspaper didn't mention was that if you'd simply bought a low-cost UK equity index fund, a tracker fund here in the UK, £5,000 would have turned into 5,583. And the point I'm making here is that if you pay fund managers to manage portfolios and take decisions, investment decisions, there will inevitably be human error associated. And that human error actually results most of the time in an underperformance of the simple benchmark. Okay, and we can actually see this effect coming into play here in this data that I am showing with you now. Do error-prone human fund managers, whether it be ourselves or managers that we are backing, add value or destroy value on an annual basis? And again, here we see the data that we can see that, in fact, in any given year, over a 10-year period, we can see that 62% of managers will actually underperform their benchmark. Over 15 years, it's 67%. Over 20 years, it's 72%. So if you're with a fund manager for 10 years or so, the odds are that he's actually going to underperform his index. And that's simply the result of the mistakes that we all make as human beings. Let's move on, because what I want to do is actually share with you a little bonus secret. We've done 3 secrets so far. Let's have a look at a 4th. Bonus secret number 4. My question to you is, are your fund managers flying on autopilot most of the time? You know, if you take a plane anywhere, I think you'll find that 75 to 80% of the time that you are in the air, your plane is actually being flown on the autopilot, and in fact the pilots only take over for takeoff or for landing. Now the question I want to put to you is, does the same hold good for your fund managers? Are they flying the fund on autopilot 75 or 80% of the time? What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, if you look at a good many funds, and I would say the vast majority of funds out there, because of the fund manager's herding instinct, they will always try and, as closely as possible, hug the index, their underlying benchmark, because they know that they're never going to be sacked for slightly underperforming or for slightly outperforming. But if they really were to radically depart from the underlying benchmark in the portfolio, they run the risk of a significant underperformance. So as a result, they play it safe. So I would say 60 to 70% of the funds that are out there are actually pursuing what is known as a closet tracking policy. They are closet index trackers. I sometimes call these funds sheep in wolves' clothing. They promote themselves as being active managers who are taking lots of decisions which are very different from their benchmark and from their index, and that's how they're going to add value for you. But when you actually look at the underlying fund, and we're able to do this with some of the tools that we have, we can see that up to 80 or 90% of the fund return is determined by the performance of its underlying benchmark. So my question to you is, do you know which of your funds are actually doing this? Because that begs the question, if they are in fact closet index trackers, why are you paying high active fees for an active, expensive, human investment manager, when in fact 80 to 90% of the time what you're seeing is exactly the same as if you were in a low-cost index tracking fund? So the bonus secret number 4 here is you need to lift the bonnet on the funds you're invested in and ask yourself or your advisor, are my funds really closet index trackers? Are they sheep in wolves' clothing? So we're coming towards the end of our time together. I like to show the slide. I know it's a very unrabbinic slide, but this is a picture of bacon and eggs. And as you can see on this picture of bacon and eggs, which is a standard breakfast staple here in England, one of my friends said to me, what's the difference, Saul, between the eggs and the bacon? Well, the eggs came from the chicken and the bacon came from the pig. And as he said to me, Saul, the difference is, as far as the chicken is concerned, the chicken is involved, but the pig is committed. So the reason why I'm telling you this little amusing anecdote is, the question on the table is, are you merely involved in your investments? Are you merely paying lip service to being a cost-effective investor, or are you truly committed to being a cost-effective investor? So, the 3 secrets of cost-effective investing. I brought up a slide right at the beginning of the show with yes, with TIO, and with no. Well, what does TIO stand for? Well, TIO actually stands for think it over. And in my experience, when most people say, I'm going to think it over, what they really mean is no. So what I'd like you to do, please, at the end of our session here together, if you've got pen and paper, is write out for yourself the following statement. The next 12 months are going to be so much better for my investments because. Just please fill in the gap. Give some thought to what you're going to be doing, the actions that you're going to be taking in trying to become a more cost-effective investor in order to make sure that the next 12 months are going to be so much better for your investments over the long term than the previous 12 months. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation. Apologies for the technical problems that we had at the beginning. This is my first webinar. I'm new at this game, and thank you for joining. What we're going to be doing here now is I'm going to be sending you an email straight after this presentation. What I'm going to ask you to do is, the email says simply, if you do not wish us to contact you ever again and not be on our mailing list, please just hit the reply button. Otherwise, we will be in contact with you just to see whether there's anything we can do in terms of help, assistance, any questions you may have about this session, whether there's any practical applications in terms of some of the stuff that we've spoken about. So as I say, we're going to be sending you that email in a moment. I really don't want to trouble you if you're not interested in this material, so I'd be really grateful if you were to hit the no button if it isn't of any interest to you. So many thanks indeed. We have the standard risk warnings and notes that our regulators insist that we put out here. So I really want you to appreciate that the information I've shared here with you is really in order to enable you to ask good questions of your advisors. Many thanks for joining us, and over and out.